Okay.
Let me step away. Let me step away. Contemporary art gallery. I'm here with Tsunami, Shep.
Hello.
The Black Ballet series. Hello, Mr. Shep. How are you today?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm doing amazingly well. So standing behind you on the wall, you have 5 of your recent pieces as part of your Black Ballet series.
Correct.
Do you mind describing them and naming them to me so that the audience can know what we're talking about?
So here we have Ensueño, which means daydream. Labios, which means lips, obviously. Tranquila, which is tranquility. Doblar no romper, bend don't break. And this is Pensado.
Okay, and out of these 5 pieces, is there any favorites that you can elaborate on for me?
Mainly Ensueño, daydream, because it's a thing that I share with friends, family, my sons, about manifestation and using daydreams to create your life.
Would you say that this moment has been a part of your manifestation?
Indeed, it has. Every bit of it.
Is it looking like a 10 out of 10, or do we still need to elaborate on that?
We're like at a 7.5 and it's going to a 10.
We love
that. If it was like a little bit of AC, I'd be at a 10, but it's cool.
Understood. It's a little high.
That's SAT. I got something.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Moving on, I actually want to talk about the piece that's standing right behind you.
Okay.
This is Tranquila, correct?
Correct.
And in this piece, we obviously see this new woman kneeling. Why did we choose to have
Kneeling, praying, meditating, going within. I think it's necessary for every life. In our day-to-day operations, there's a lot of sifting and sorting that you have to do, and I think it's important to take at least 5 minutes, just 5 minutes out of your day, if not longer, to just center yourself, connect with yourself, God, whatever higher being you subscribe to, and tune in and listen. I think you get a lot of intuitive downloads once you actually do that, and it calms the storms of life that we all endure. So yeah, this is my interpretation of that. And of course, you know, in terms of describing the nudity, I believe a human being's rawest form is unclothed. So to me, describing all of this, or the reason why I did it, is it's in its rawness before God.
Thank you for that. Now, you did say that nudity in its rawest form. Why did you choose a woman to make this series?
To me, life, humanity, women, black women are the closest thing, in my personal opinion, to God. They are the life force. Everything comes through them. Without them, there is no life. So I feel like it's the closest way of me personally interpreting my perspective of one of many. In my personal opinion, God is in everything, to be clear. But in terms of human form, this is it.
Wow, thank you. On behalf of all black women watching this, I do have to elaborate on that. You said that the representation of black women, where do you feel like this sits right now in the world? Take a moment.
I believe we have representation. And I guess to me the conversation becomes about narrative. How are we described? How are we seen? I think within, if you want to subscribe to a culture, being a Cuban American, Afro-Cuban American, to be defined by a genre of music, we're seen as hip hop. To me, I don't think any other race is implanted in that regard. So to me, that's where our conversation starts, but it doesn't end. For me, it's breaking the barriers and stigmas of that in representing just being an artist. I don't consider myself as a black artist. Majority of the people that I've worked with are of vast demographics, races, and everything else. For me, this is actually the first time I've taken on the subject of the black body. So again, to be clear, I subscribe myself to just be an artist who, for my first collection, I chose a black woman as a figure as representation.
Now, I do want to elaborate. You said that the black community tends to be pigeonholed to just hip hop. Where do you see hip hop?
I believe we are in a renaissance. A lot of times we don't realize when a renaissance is happening. It's actually the revival of something. That's what renaissance means. Whenever there's a door open within culture, whether you're talking about R&B or hip hop, there is a perfection that I like to find in the art. Within hip hop, you have the lyricists. My two favorite, Jay-Z and Drake, and two different timelines, two different styles, but nonetheless both relevant to now. So creating timeless effortless works within art, I believe the same thing is necessary. There are many who are living contemporary artists who are transitioning, but are they household names like a Basquiat? If you haven't transitioned into that, I don't think, I think that there's a hole. We can name the contemporary artists of the times now that have gone beyond the Andy Warhols. So within that, if Basquiat is the last name that I can remember as a artist of color, or a black artist to be specific, that means that there's a gap there that needs to be filled. I don't mind filling it. I don't mind, taking the torch and mantle and going over the wall with whomever chooses to go with me. I pray that there's many that take on that, and not just, like I said, being pigeonholed to being a black artist, but an artist in general. Basquiat has been able to transcend time, space, ethnicity. That is what I would like to do. To where if you own a Basquiat, what that means to the house, what that means to the buyer, that's what I feel is necessary. And again, I think we are in the middle of a renaissance of culture, and that's just as even American culture, with being well traveled. I had the pleasure of being a part of the London Biennale this year, and seeing the American representation that goes overseas. There is a huge gap, in my opinion, for the American artist to fit into the commercial art space and become a household name. So that's what I look to carry the torch and mantle of, along with anyone else who wants to run the race with me. I think it's an honor, one, to be in these spaces, to have achieved and checked off some of the things that I've checked off, whether it be celebrity collaborations or even in the commercial gallery space, and going into the museum space. I see renaissance, even with Diddy, with his new thing going into revamping and revigorating R&B. There's no R&B, there's no rhythm and blues. Whether you're black, white, brown, yellow, everyone knows who Marvin Gaye is. Who's the new R&B artist that sings our songs, that gives rhythm and pace to and soul to the times? I think it's necessary. And so I think that's what we're in the middle of. And 10 to 15, 20 years from now, we'll see and look back on the history of those people who took those places.
Now, you mentioned that you went international with this series, correct?
Correct.
Were there any positive, negative, or any memorable experiences?
So for me, the perplexing thing is how the Asian community embraces my artwork. I consider myself artistic, not artsy. And I don't want to get too heavy into that. That's more of a personal conversation. But it's one of those things to where what perplexed me was this. For the Asian community, the topic of white space is a part of the conversation. It's just as relevant as if I took that same space and painted it hyper pink. And so to be made aware of that by the Asian community, the whether it was a Jewish woman or a German woman who came up to me and said, "Thank you for representing women as a total." That was refreshing to hear, because again, that's what I want. That's the goal. It's not just about black women in my artwork or being black in the artwork. It's about representing the feminine figure. So yeah, no, that was eye-opening. It helped reframe my ignorance, and I hope more of that happens so that I can unlearn some of the things that we are ingrained with as a culture.
Wow, thank you. I was enlightened. I didn't know about that. I do want to circle back to one, thinking about the piece Lalio's Reader. I noticed that this is probably the only piece that certainly highlights one specific part of the body. Why is that?
It's the most powerful part other than your mind. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I believe firmly that words hold weight, whether you say them or not. Within urban culture, hip hop, it's one of the things that is highlighted. A woman's lips. It's one of the features that a man first looks at other than the eyes. So to me, to highlight that part of the female figure rather than breast or boobs or, the obvious, I found it necessary to highlight the mouth. It's the most poignant part of the human anatomy other than the tongue, in my opinion.
Okay, and I also noticed that there are two pieces that are stark black, and the rest of them have a nice contrasting white background.
Correct.
What was the reason behind that?
So again, to highlight the contrast of the lights, the lips. But for this one, when you have had, if I may speak frankly, a fucked up day, this is how most people feel. They feel like they want to pull out their hair, scream and yell, but most women bear the burden in silence. And so this was the expression that I found where most women economically have to bear the burden of the household, or if they're trying to keep things together, including themselves. This is what I felt was an expression of that. A woman holding her hair because it is her crowning glory, but also just silently screaming.
Now there's 5. Are there any more to this series?
There's a total of 32 images. Certain ones are commercial and certain ones are more for museum. But out of the commercial collection, there's 9. So this is 5 of the 9 pieces.
9. So are there any surprises we should expect out of you coming in the near future?
Absolutely. So if you are in attendance of this year's Miami Art Basel or Miami Art Week, whatever they want to call it this year, those pieces will be previewed along with a few other surprises that I brought along. I'm more of a designer than a painter. I can do all of it. And so, bringing those designs and crossing into different mediums that I'm able to tap into, they'll be on display in Miami.
All right, and one last question. With this series, where would you like to see it go, and places that you'd like to see it?
Everywhere. Like, everywhere. I want to see it everywhere. Not just in the U.S., not just in London, but Paris, Dubai.
Even New Jersey?
New Jersey, especially Newark. Everywhere. Everywhere.
Tsunami, are there any last remarks you'd like everyone to make?
Daydream. It works.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.